If you were a fan of medieval fantasy or looking for the next big adventure game during the early 2000s, you might remember the name Runescape. This beloved title has an extensive history that, for many gamers of that time period, is a cherished memory. Today, let's get a blast of the past with the one, the only, Runescape. On January 4th, 2001, the first iteration of Runescape was released, dubbed Runescape Classic. This resembled a simple flash game at best, with graphics even outdated for its time. It was developed on an internal proprietary engine known as RuneTech, specifically Runescape II, and was released by the company Jagex. One of the most notable characteristics of it was the fact that it was completely free. The core gameplay saw the players live out the lives of their characters in a world full of adventure and danger. Quests dotted the map with a bounty of content to explore. Instead of focusing on a heavily customized theme and storyline to make them stand out, Runescape Classic held true to its traditional roots, and remained simple in everything it did. Many of its quests avoided overly complex situations or storytelling methods, instead focusing on standard tropes. They had simple requirements, simple rewards, and let the player experience the true life of an adventurer. Questing wasn't the only focus of the game though. In Runescape Classic, there were a series of skills a player could level, granting them access to an increased range of abilities and proficiencies. However, the available skills were far different than your standard RPG. There were the standard skills like attack, defense, and strength, but also life skills like cooking, woodcutting, and mining. This allowed a player to not only become a great combatant, but also develop the livelihood of their character, things that would really serve them day to day. This focus on giving a true adventure experience was and really still is an iconic part of RuneScape. A year after its release in 2002, Jagex released a membership option for users. Those who opted into this gained access to unique content really only available to them. This allowed Jagex to actually make some money on the game, while providing an enhanced experience for the dedicated users who decided to pay. In 2004, 3 years after the release of Runescape Classic, Jagex released Runescape II, or what is more commonly referred to as Old School Runescape. This iteration came with a new release of the RuneTech engine, bringing about massive changes, a big advancement in the available skills, and a newly refined and updated combat system. Players could now expand their life as an adventurer outside of just simple 2D pixels, instead designing their characters and setting off to explore a new, albeit low resolution, 3D world. The overall quality of life was also massively improved, bringing a new audio player that let players actually choose the music to play as they wandered the world, improved interfaces to make navigation and accessibility easier, and the ability to run, which was amazing! Over the following 3 years, the popularity of RuneScape exploded, causing it to be viewed as the go-to online RPG. With so many people playing, it was commonplace to, as you were traveling the lands, see players loitering around the mine pits to work on their mining skill, or making trails of fire pits to work on their fire building skill. So much activity gave a lot of life to the world, and gave it a sense of bustle that still remains unmatched in most MMOs. In 2007, one of the biggest releases in RuneScape's history happened, the release of the Grand Exchange. Prior to this monumental release, players would have to gather around popular spots like Lumbridge and Varrock and post messages in chat about wanting to buy or sell goods, and wait patiently, in hope, for players to actually initiate a trade with them. This meant potentially hours of idle time waiting if you were looking for something specific. With the Grand Exchange, trading was automated through a server-wide system. You would speak to one of the exchange clerks and either put up an item for sale or search for an item you like to buy. Because this revolutionized how trading was handled, it became exceedingly popular. Generally, selling items would be a near instantaneous purchase. The impact of this release meant acquiring items were far easier than previously, and players could really dig their teeth into farming without having to hassle with hours of waiting once they're done. The last major noteworthy release for Runescape II came in 2008, and it was called Runescape HD. This introduced a high-resolution graphics to RuneScape, and by high resolution I mean high resolution for RuneScape. Not so much games like BioShock. What a beautiful game. In this release, players could enable the high-resolution graphics version of the game, which came with full screen support and a much higher degree of graphical fidelity. If you were a paying member, of course. This feature was not available for players playing for free. This was also a tough thing to run on most players' computers, as it did require some hustle on the computer specs. Overall, it introduced a new step of growth for RuneScape, one that propelled it into its future. In 2012, the most recent rendition of RuneScape was released, dubbed Runescape III. This release was worth years of waiting, as it brought about major changes to the game. First of all, it introduced a new game client based on the web programming language HTML5, which allowed it to run faster and with a higher allowance for graphical fidelity. One of the most startling changes that players got to see was the introduction of combat abilities. Instead of the older method of back and forth slapfest where you prayed for an actual hit and not the cold, unfortunate sign of a miss, now you could actually activate abilities that have a variety of effects in combat. This gave combat a massive amount of depth and introduced allowance for complex enemy decisions and boss encounters. However though, combat wasn't the only big change. Interface design has always been a center of conversation in RuneScape, and with RuneScape III, they brought about full customization. Now nearly all windows could be unlocked and moved around the screen, letting players arrange their views as they see fit. These are just some of the highlight changes, as the introduction of RuneScape III was a massive shift in experience. Gameplay was far more dynamic, adventuring was full of life and bustle, and the world was alive and full of content. Over the next years up until now, RuneScape has been improving everything about the game, whether that be new quests, events, massive new areas to explore, or even new skills to enjoy. The last notable big change to RuneScape III came in 2016, it being the replacement of the HTML5 client with a brand new internal C++ client. This change better supported the massive growth and complexity of gameplay that RuneScape is heading towards, alongside their push for continuous content deployment to make the bustling world even more bustling. RuneScape has, and probably will be for a long time, an ever-growing beast. From its humble 2001 beginnings to its dynamic and complex existence now, it's been a world where dreamers and adventurers from all realms can come together and have a fun and expansive experience. As a fan myself, it warms my heart to reflect on how far it's come, and I'm thrilled to see what happens in the future. And that's it. Thank you once again for joining me. If you are interested in a much deeper and far more complex history analysis of the life of RuneScape, there's a fantastic video out by the YouTuber Moteplox on the subject. His link will be in the details section below. However, if you liked this video or found it useful, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Most importantly though, leave your thoughts and ideas in the comment section below, as I'd love to hear them. As always, I'll see you in the next one.